Okay, for those of you that are familiar with some of my other Norns Shield videos, then this is the familiar sound of Awake. But today's stream, the purpose is to show you this device. It's from a company called Sevilla Soft, and it's a USB to USB host device, which means that both Ableton and Norns are capable of being hosts. It's fantastic stuff. So essentially it's bi-directional communication, and that alone is worth the price of entry. Because what that means is you can take the MIDI output, the ideas from Norns in terms of things like the sequencer, like Awake that you're just listening to right now, and be able to capture that, and also be able to send stuff from Ableton to the Norns. Whilst I'm not got enough time today to say set it up for MPE with the Ableton Live 11 beta, opens up a host of other sorts of possibilities. So fantastic stuff. Please, I apologise for the wobbly hand with the device coming out of focus. Right, so that's the last time you're going to see this device. It's about, if I remember rightly, I think it's about £40 in total. It might be plus or minus a couple of quid for postage, but it's really well worth getting. Right, so that's the last of that. So basically, it acts as it gives you 4 USB ports, and if you have a look here at Ableton where it says MIDI ins, you can see 4 USB ports, and they're called Puerto 1, as you would expect from a Spanish company. So it's port 1, port 2, port 3, port 4. Now the way that I've kind of set this up is so that the Norns is on port 2 and Ableton is port 1, so that then communication can be try not to get it too confused. I mean, really, the thing is, I've only got 2 MIDI devices. It treats Ableton as a MIDI device and shows it up in that way. And then obviously the Norns shows up as a MIDI device as well. But both are capable of being hosts, which is fantastic. I also have a Eurorack sequencer, which I haven't tried out yet with it, but I know that the Eurorack sequencer is going to behave exactly the same as Ableton and the Norns. And it's going to facilitate bi-directional communication. So let's have a look under the setup page, the sorts of things that you'll need to do. So the main thing we're interested in is the output section, and this gives us a range of possibilities. These are audio, MIDI, so as you can hear, we hear nothing now. So if we didn't want to use the Norns, but we wanted the MIDI output, so let's have a look at that, because you can see here that there's MIDI activity here on the channel that I've labelled from Norns. So if I put an operator on there, we can hear it, right? That's the idea. And then I can transpose it an octave, but guess what? I can bring the Norns back in as well. Oh, I'm moving around. So now they're an octave apart. They're pretty much in sync. It's fantastic, right? Opens up a whole host of possibilities. I could just sit around and listen to that for quite a while, but I guess we'll need to motor on. So that's really good. So that takes care of that sort of side of things. I'll show you the system setup window in a second. So I'm just going to turn operator off. So then what we also have is this MIDI out device. So as I said, I'm using port 2 from Norns and port 1 to send to Norns. Now I'll show you what that means in this way. Under the system menu, let's go back one more. So under the system menu you have a parameter called devices, and you can see a number of menus, sub-menus. I don't have a grid, so we're not going to go down there, but you have MIDI. So because I've already used the 16N in some of the previous, the 16N fader bank, I've already used it in a couple of other videos, there are only 3 other slots. So you can see that MIDI device 1 is 16N, but MIDI device 2 is port 1 of this MIDI USB, and MIDI device 3 is port 2, and so on, right? So that's essentially the only piece of complicated information we need to kind of remember. It's the different device that we're going to try and address. And that's kind of it, really. And then essentially we're sort of moving around, editing the variety of parameters that we're going to be using here. So if we change this to MIDI out device 3, we have nothing, right? We've still got MIDI data coming in, which we can see. If I turn the Norns back on, operator back on, see what happens if we get a hang if we turn it on to 1, because that's the 16N. And obviously, because we've got this bidirectionality between ports 2 and 3 and 4, you can hear it sort of locking up in terms of MIDI. I've made it have a MIDI jam, right? So that's the idea there that we have. I'm just going to close this up. And so sending to the Norns from here, you have a number of ports. So I'm going to send out of port 1 from here. So let's, I'm going to swap out the patch that we're using. And we're going to use a different patch. And we're going to make this one the Passersby, which is the West Coast mono synth. So what we should be able to do here is, again, we have to go back in. It doesn't have much of a memory, so we need to kind of go back in and edit the MIDI data. So we scrolling down. So we sort out the device. It could be MIDI device 2, right? We can leave the MIDI channel as it is, unless you're addressing a host of devices. I really wouldn't worry about doing that. I mean, obviously Ableton lets you address a particular MIDI channel, but because this isn't really a multi-timbral device, it's kind of irrelevant in some ways, really. I mean, the only thing you can do is keep the channel numbers low, because of MIDI being a serial protocol. That's kind of probably the only advice I would offer. And then that essentially sort of makes it pretty much it, really. We can create I'm going to create a little, actually, let's do a different one. Let's take the Max for Live mono sequencer. I'll get rid of that clip. Max for Live doesn't always seem to, the way that it's displayed in Ableton, sometimes it doesn't show up on the video screen. So if you're not seeing this, I'm really sorry. There is actually a Max for Live device on this channel. So what I've got here now is just basically a set of Cs that are transposed in octaves. And the things I like to do, I make it 3, and I make the pitch move in 7. here, if we wanted to have the operator playing along, then instead of taking the channel from Norns, we say that we take it directly from the MIDI channel, which I've labelled to Norns. Brilliant, right? Make it much tighter, the low pass gate. Sounding good. Sorry, hit the microphone. There's already quite a lot of reverb on there, unfortunately. But I won't swap pages right now. So then we can assign the LFO in terms of its rate, and then move over to assigning it to something. Let's say we're going to assign it to shape, folding, assign it to the low of the FM. I love the way that goes. So you're changing the shape. I think that one's the random, square, so much slower rate. Obviously you've got, you can randomize it. I'm not going to do that because sometimes it gets a bit, it's something you should do privately. It can get quite wild. So you can see the effect of the LFO doing the wave shaping and the folding as it cycles through. It's a fantastic piece of programming, man. Okay, so that's basically a quick walkthrough with this Sevilla Soft MIDI USB to USB, really important. It enables host communication, bidirectional communication between two hosts, which is fantastic, right? And it unlocks a whole host of possibilities, especially if you haven't got grids like me. I'm not pleading impoverishment, I just haven't got grids. But it can do a lot of controlling from Ableton, and because I also have sort of things like line, I'll be looking at that and using that to send messages to the Norns via MIDI. Fantastic. I'm going to carry on playing with the wave shaping. Until next time, enjoy.